Greetings all and welcome to the New Earth Star Sanctuary. This is the introduction to the Stars of Mu video series. This series is based on information that I received from my Inner Planes mentor Thoth Hara in the mid-1990s. He gave this to me in his Thoth speak, which I will be sharing with you, relating to the way the ancients of Mu, that is Lemuria, understood astrology, their perspective on it. Now, the period of time that I'm focusing on, or he is focusing on and brought to me, is a later period of Lemuria, when these constellations were constellations. In other words, they were deemed as such by the Lemurians, and it was carried down through time to the Atlanteans and so on and on and on and on until it reached, our antiquity and us today. Of course, it's changed quite a bit during all of that, but the basics of it, surprisingly, have remained very similar. I mean, they are divided into these specific zodiacal signs. So this would be a period of Lemuria, that was already in that realm, so to speak, in that time sequencing of Earth and reality frame, in that holographic projection. Any way you wish to explain it, it was in sync, more or less, with where we are now in that regard. But there are some acute differences. And this is the way that the Lemurians and the Atlanteans perceived the whole cosmogenetic, cosmogenesis, and how we, as human beings and our planet, operate within it. They did not personalize astrology so much as we do now, not anywhere near as much. There was a little sprinkling of frosting, shall we say, on this cake, but that little sprinkling was very minor. The major body of the study was about how the planet itself is a part of the whole cosmos. And everything that comes through it represents the whole cosmos. And humanity, as the offspring of Gaia, receives her portion. And individuals out of that can see how they align to particular times of birth and frequency. But, this was something that was barely discussed or demonstrated in any way. On a rare occasion, it might be mentioned. Mostly, people knew in that time frame that the true heart of their experience was a collective vibration. They did not have as much individuation as we do now, for one thing. They did recognize themselves as individual human beings to an extent, but they really did not dwell on this. There was no "I did it my way" in those days. It was more a collective understanding. Now, each person contributed something that was unique, a facet on the crystal, and they recognized this. But it was not applauded and focused upon to the dimension and depth that we do now. And this is not a make wrong, this is experience, and this is the experience we're having right now of extreme individuation. But it's breaking up again. You see, it's moving back into the greater flow again. And so as it does so, we're in that in between where we're going, oh my gosh, I don't feel like me anymore. Who am I? You know, what is my definition of me? It's changing. It's changing. What is it? I've got to find out. You know, this is all going on at really deep levels for all of us. And it's because we're moving into this greater unit again. And as we slowly do so, you know, like an ice flow on the land, creak, you know, as it moves along, it kind of scrapes the bottom rocks, you know, and we're feeling all of that because we aren't yet in the flow when the ice breaks and the water starts flowing into the new dimension. So we're in that place right now. But back to our astrology of Lemuria, they were still there, and they were able to accept one another as individuals, but they so completely saw the connection between all human beings and the shared, what they would call logica, the intelligence forming the logic of the planet, the shared logica, which was a gift to them from the planetary genius within the center of the earth, a whole other topic we'll just brush upon here. So they were able to express it much better, and it's reflected in their look of astrology, how they saw it and how the mythos that they created, what it really represents. As I was working with these videos from the material that I'd written many years ago, and really, I don't think hardly read, maybe briefly here and there, as a reference since then. As I was working with this material and going through the process of creating these videos, I really felt myself move into a much deeper dimension and understanding of the relationship of astrology to the planet and to our deeper inner nature. Something that can't even be written or spoken about. I mean, it's just an energy, a frequency. And I started feeling it and receiving it. So I am hoping that this will be the same for you. And I would suggest that you listen to these videos in the sequence that I put them into this album. And they won't follow the sequence of the procession, because even though the procession might have been the same then, I think it probably was, the purposes that each of these signs held in an initiatory way was not aligned necessarily to the procession. And you can wonder why not, but this comes from a higher dimensional understanding, where linear time, and thus the precession of the stars and the swirling of the earth around the sun and all of this, is not in the equation. So this higher understanding, this higher cosmology, was imprinted into the linear understanding, and it makes a pretty good match. But when you want to go through the initiations of it, you really kind of have to step outside the linear, at least for the higher stages of initiation. And that's what we're really working with here. I do honestly believe that by using as a medium Second Life and my avatar, that I have meticulously created to represent the energy and the consciousness that is part me and part Thoth, and there I go dividing things up, because that's the way the mind works, isn't it? So, it's all one. But in creating the avatar and the bringing through the symbology through her attire, through her being, it's my way, my unique way of drawing forth from that well in a visual presentation. Now, granted, if I had all the incredible software, the skill, the time, the energy, and the talent, I might be making just incredibly marvelous, wonderful videos that were far beyond this. But this is what I can do. And I'm very pleased with it. I feel it energetically speaks the language that I wish to speak to you. And so with this video series, this is a step up in using it in that way. And Thoth encourages me to use it because, as he states, the virtual world, the pixelated world, is really a more subtle level of what we're experiencing here. It's not a complete level, obviously. It's a you know, an illusional thing in that sense. But we're not a complete level either. We're just a little more dense and able to move around in 3D and do things and eat and sleep and do all of these things, which in Second Life you can. But the essence of subtlety in defining energies and being able to bring them through the atmosphere into the internet and through the internet into a communicative format with human beings is powerful. And when you include creating that reality in a live time situation, although you're seeing this recorded, this is a live time situation for me. And I'm able to communicate that through to you in a very specific way, through things I have created to allow that to progress. Thus, our series here, The Stars of Mu, is a not just informative, but is a transformative experience. It is a transmission. And I'm using the tools that I have at hand that I feel guided to use and comfortable with to do so. And so I hope, dear ones, that you will have a true experience from this, each in your own way, that further validates for you your inner knowings and promptings from the spiritual being that you are.